What if the universe doesn't actually have a speed limit? Not in the way you've been taught. Because what you call the speed of light isn't really a speed. It only looks like one. That number 299,792,458 meters per second feels familiar, clean, precise, final. You've seen it in textbooks, exams, videos. You were told this is how fast light travels. And you accepted it. But here's the problem. That answer is shallow. It tells you what happens, not why it exists at all. Because in physics, numbers like this are never just measurements. They are signals, clues, fingerprints left by the structure of reality itself. We call them constants. They show up everywhere, quiet, repeating, unavoidable. And for a long time, they were treated like facts to memorize, like entries in a table. Plug them in, get your answer, move on. But that approach misses something deeper. Constants don't just sit there. They connect things. They reveal relationships you didn't even realize were there. Imagine drawing a map. On that map, 1 inch equals 1 mile. That ratio, 1 inch to 1 mile, is not a property of the world. It's a property of how you're describing it. It's a conversion. A bridge between two different ways of measuring the same thing. Now here's where everything shifts. What if the speed of light is exactly that? Not a speed, but a conversion factor. A bridge. Not between two distances, but between two dimensions, space and time. You measure space in meters. You measure time in seconds. They feel completely different. Space is something you move through freely. Time is something that carries you forward without asking. One feels like a place. The other feels like a force. But that separation is an illusion because at a deeper level, they are not separate at all. They are fused into a single structure, space-time. One fabric, one system. And that number c is the factor that translates between them. It tells you how much space is equivalent to 1 second of time, meters per second, not as motion, but as conversion. And if you really understand that, then something unsettling happens. C is no longer about how fast something moves. It's about how reality is built. It's about the geometry of existence, the shape of the universe itself. That means something radical. Light isn't going fast. It's simply following the structure of space-time. It's doing the only thing it can do. Anything with zero mass has no choice. It cannot slow down. It cannot stop. It cannot exist at any other rate. Not because it's powerful, but because reality leaves it no alternative. That's the first uncomfortable truth. Here's the second. You've been thinking of speed as something objects have, but this isn't about objects. This is about limits, about boundaries written into existence itself. And here's the third, the one most people never face. If this number defines how space and time connect, then your experience of reality is not absolute. It's conditional, flexible, dependent on motion, which means the way you experience time right now is not universal. It's just local, just one version of reality. And once you see that, that number stops being something you memorize and starts being something you question, because it's no longer about light. It's about the rules you are living inside without ever noticing, and that should bother you. Because if you don't question those rules, you'll keep thinking reality is simple. When in truth, you think distance is obvious. 2 points. Measure the gap, simple. But that only works in a world where time doesn't matter. The moment time enters, your intuition starts to fail. Because in reality, nothing just exists in space. Everything happens in space-time, not objects. Events. Something happens somewhere at some time. That's the true building block of the universe. Now ask the real question. What is the actual distance between two events? Not just how far apart they are in space, but how far apart they are in reality. In space-time, in ordinary space, you already know the rule. Move 3 meters one way, 4 meters another. You get 5 meters total. Clean, predictable, stable. That's geometry. And no matter how you rotate yourself, no matter how you describe it, that distance doesn't change. It's real. Physicists call that invariant. Now here's where things break. Bring time into the equation. Two events happen. One here, one somewhere else. A few seconds apart, you try to measure the distance between them. But now something strange happens. Different observers get different answers. One person says the events are far apart in space. Another says they're closer. One says they happened seconds apart. Another says the timing is different. Space shifts, time shifts, reality seems unstable. That should disturb you, because if everything depends on perspective, what is actually real? There has to be something deeper, something that doesn't change, and there is. The interval, the hidden distance of space-time, not measured the way you expect, not space plus time, but something stranger. Space and time oppose each other. They don't add, they subtract. The more separation in space, the less separation in time. And the more separation in time, the less in space. A trade-off, a balance. And holding that balance together is one number, c, the conversion factor between space and time. Without it, you can't even compare them. Meters and seconds don't mix. But c forces them into the same language. It lets you measure reality as one unified thing. And when you do, something powerful emerges. No matter how fast you move, no matter how your perspective changes, the interval stays the same, always. Unbreakable. That is the true geometry of the universe. Not space alone, not time alone, but their combination. And here's the uncomfortable truth. What you see as space and what you feel as time are not fundamental. They are just projections. Different ways of slicing the same deeper structure, which means your perception of distance is not absolute. Your perception of time is not absolute. Even your sense of before and after can shift depending on motion. That's not philosophy. That's physics. And if that doesn't shake you, it should. Because it means reality is not what it appears to be. It's deeper, stranger, more rigid than your intuition allows. And at the center of it all, quiet, constant, unavoidable, is c. Not as a speed, but as the rule that binds space and time into one system. The rule that decides what can happen and what never will. Here's an idea that sounds harmless. The laws of physics are the same everywhere, no matter where you are, no matter how fast you're moving. It feels obvious. Of course, the universe plays fair, but sit with it for a moment, and it starts to crack your intuition. Because if that statement is truly absolute, then everything must obey it. Not just mechanics, not just motion, everything, including light. Now here's where things turn. The equations of electromagnetism predict something very specific. Light doesn't travel at any speed. It travels at one value, fixed, exact, unchanging. So if the laws of physics are the same for every observer, then every observer must measure that same value. No exceptions, no adjustments. No matter how fast they're moving, stop and feel how unnatural that is. Because in your world, speeds add up. If a car comes toward you, it reaches you faster. If you chase something, you close the gap. That's how motion works. That's what experience teaches you. But here, that rule breaks. Completely, you can run toward light at extreme speed, and it will still move away from you at the same value. You can chase it forever and never gain on it. That's not just strange. That's a violation of everything your instincts expect. So how does the universe fix this contradiction? It doesn't change the speed. It changes reality. Time slows down. Space compresses. Not visually, not psychologically, physically, measurably. Your clock ticks slower. Your distances shrink. Not because something is wrong, but because something deeper is being protected. And here's the truth. The universe is not protecting light. It's protecting consistency. Because if different observers saw different laws, then reality would split. Cause and effect would break. Two people could disagree on what actually happened, not interpretation, but reality itself. And that cannot be allowed. So instead, the universe sacrifices your assumptions. It bends time. It warps space. It rewrites your measurements, all to preserve one thing, the unity of physical law. And that leads to a harsh realization. Your intuition about motion is wrong, completely, because motion is not just movement through space, it's movement through space-time. And the faster you move through one, the less you move through the other. A trade you cannot escape. That's why time slows at high speeds. That's why lengths contract, not as side effects, but as necessary corrections. Reality adjusting itself to remain consistent. And at the center of all of it, unchanging, silent, absolute, is c. Not a speed to chase, not a barrier to break, but a rule the universe refuses to violate. And here's the uncomfortable truth. You don't experience reality as it is. You experience a version of it filtered through your motion, a local slice, a limited perspective. And if you never question that, you'll keep trusting instincts that were never designed to understand the universe. Because at its core, reality is not built for comfort. It's built for consistency. And it will break your intuition before it breaks its laws. Section 4, light has no rest expanded to 500 words. Try to imagine this clearly. You are chasing a beam of light faster and faster, closer and closer to that ultimate limit. Your intuition tells you what should happen. You should start catching up. The gap should shrink. The light should slow down relative to you. Eventually, you should see it almost frozen in front of you. That's how everything works in your world. But here, that expectation collapses completely. No matter how fast you go, light never slows down. Not even a little. You don't get closer to matching it. You just distort everything else. And here's why. Light cannot be still. Not difficult. Not unlikely. Impossible. Because light is not like an object you can stop. It's not a ball, not a car, not something that can rest. Light is a process, a self-sustaining pattern, a wave built from changing electric and magnetic fields. And that pattern only exists in motion. Stop the motion, and the pattern disappears. No motion, no wave. No wave, no light. So the idea of catching up to light is not just hard, it's meaningless. You're asking for a state that reality does not allow. And this leads to something even more unsettling. There is no perspective, where light is at rest, not yours, not anyone's. There is no frame of reference where a photon is sitting still. That state does not exist in the universe. And that should shake you, because you've been assuming something your whole life, that anything moving can, in principle, be stopped. That rest is always possible. That stillness is the default, but light destroys that assumption completely. Light has zero mass, and because of that, It cannot slow down. It cannot pause. It cannot exist at any other speed. Not because it's powerful, but because it's not anchored to time, the way you are. You experience time second by second. You have a now. You move forward. Light doesn't. It doesn't experience time in the same way. From its own perspective, if such a thing could even be defined, there is no passage of time at all. Emission and absorption collapse together. No journey, no delay. That's not intuitive. That's not comfortable, but it's what the equations demand. And here's the deeper shift. Light doesn't move through space-time the way you do. It traces the edge of it, the boundary, the limit where space and time balance perfectly. And that boundary is defined by one thing, vort, not as a speed you measure, but as the only possible state for something without mass. There is no alternative, no slower version, no resting state, no exception, and this reveals a brutal truth. Not everything in the universe plays by the same rules. Your experience of reality, time flowing, space existing, motion being relative, is not universal. It's conditional. It applies to things like you, things with mass, things tied to time. But light lives at the edge of those rules. And that edge is not flexible. It's absolute. So when you try to imagine stopping light, you're not pushing physics to its limits. You're stepping outside it because that state doesn't exist. Now bring everything together. That number, 299,792,458 meters per second. You were told it's a speed. Something light has. Something objects try to reach, but now you see it differently. It was never about motion. It was about structure. That number is not telling you how fast something goes. It's telling you how reality is built. It's a conversion factor, a bridge between space and time, just like inches to centimeters, but far more fundamental, because inches and centimeters measure the same thing, length. But space and time, they don't feel the same. One you move through, the other carries you forward. They feel separate, independent, but they're not. They are two sides of a deeper system. Space-time, one fabric, one structure, and C is the rule that connects them. It tells you how much space is equivalent to 1 second of time. Not as motion, but as translation, as geometry. And here's the shift that changes everything. If space and time are one thing, then motion is not what you thought it was. You're not just moving through space. You are always moving through space-time. Constantly, relentlessly, and the total rate of that motion is fixed. The faster you move through space, the slower you move through time. Not metaphorically, physically, which means time is not universal. Distance is not universal. Even simultaneity, what happens at the same time, is not universal. Reality is not one shared timeline. It's a network of perspectives. And that should unsettle you, because it means your experience, your now, is not the universe. It's just your slice of it. And here come the harsh truths. You cannot break this limit. You cannot escape these constraints. You are living inside a system with rules that do not bend for you. No matter how advanced you become, this boundary stays. Not as a barrier in space, but as a rule in reality itself. Ignore that, and you'll keep thinking the universe is simple, predictable, intuitive. It's not. You'll keep trusting instincts that were never designed to understand space-time. And that's the danger. Not ignorance, but false confidence. Thinking you understand reality when you're only seeing the surface. So here's the shift. Stop treating constants like numbers. Start treating them like messages, because they are telling you something about limits, about structure, about what can exist and what never will. And the speed of light, it's not a speed. It's the boundary of cause and effect. The maximum rate at which anything in the universe can influence anything else, the edge of reality updating itself. And once you truly understand that, you stop asking, how fast can we go? And you start asking something far more dangerous. What are the rules we can never escape? Because that's where real understanding begins. Not in memorizing numbers, but in confronting what they mean. So don't just accept it. Question it. Think deeper. Because the universe is not hiding its truth. It's showing it to you in plain sight. And if you still see it as just a speed, then you're not looking closely enough.